Welcome. This will be my video on Evil Dead Burn, the movie currently in theaters, 2026. I am going to start with a review where I will only spoil the Evil Dead live action stuff leading up to it, but not including it. If you don't want any spoilers for any of that, let me just real quick say, if you like at least one Evil Dead, whether it's one of the other movies, whether it's an episode of the TV show, yes, I would say you're also going to like this. Obviously, it's more like the other recent ones than the Raimi trilogy, but yeah, continues to be a really strong brand, in my opinion. Anyway, after the review itself, I will get into what I call the thought section, and there I will spoil everything about this movie, but I will verbally let you know before, when I get to that section. The review itself is safe for spoilers for this. The movie's rated R, so will this video be. They're really pushing that, years ago this would have been an NC-17, or possibly, like, I guess unrated or something, but yeah. I'm actually fairly confident I've watched at least one violent NC-17 film that was not as violent as this was. And yeah, absolutely love this one. I will let you know at the end of the review, unless I forget, what I think, where I think this ranks. But I will tell you right now, I do think everything else live action Evil Dead leading up to, but not necessarily including this. I'll let you know at the end of the review. I think each of them, they hit the ground running, and somehow each of the previous ones just top what came before. Not in every single way, of course, but in like overall quality, in my opinion. And I would definitely say this still is one of those, like, we really don't have very many franchises like this where legit, in my opinion, there is not a single entry, movie or episode of the TV show that is less than stellar. That is, like, there are horror franchises where even just the second entry is significantly lesser than the first. So, if you have a chance to watch this in a movie theater with a packed theater, I would definitely say that is a fantastic viewing experience, provided that they're game, which I appreciate you can't really know going in. But if you're watching it with people who love horror movies, that's superior to it being watched by yourself at home. And I would also say it's worth watching. Like, the audio-visual experience is theater-worthy. Now, I guess that... Yeah, let's get right into... So the writing, I am not going to give too much away about the setup here. Merely note that it is like, in a lot of ways, this movie, that's something I really appreciate about these. They are getting gradually more complex, and the emotional intelligence is increasing. I will grant there is at least one aspect in this one where a case could be made that it is getting a bit too eager, perhaps, in something that it does. I'll discuss it in the thought section. There is simply no way I can talk about it without spoiling, but yeah. And also, I guess I'll note right here, this might be worth, some people are going to want a trigger warning, content warning kind of thing, and I think I'll say what it's for at the very start of the thought section before I spoil anything else. And if otherwise you can also, like, I knew going in because some of the reviews mention it. it's not like a major spoiler necessarily, but I try to keep these as, devoid of spoilers as possible. But yeah, this was, yeah, before oh, right. Whenever I compare this to one of its predecessors, keep in mind, I am not shitting on any of the others. I love all of these. I literally, I just rewatched, god damn it, unfortunately I wasn't able to rewatch Army of Darkness, even though I really, really love that one. But my fucking disc died. I don't know, man. Might have to get another one. Just sucks because it hadn't been played that many times. Wasn't that old of a disc. But anyway, other than that, I rewatched all of them, and also just didn't really have to, but also rewatched Darkman. Fucking love that movie. The first one. Um, I'll take pretty much any excuse to watch that movie again. But yeah. So when I compare, I'm just saying I love how they keep improving these. I'm not saying, oh, fuck the old ones. But yeah, this was the first of these where, like, before a deadite enters the situation, it is already a really uncomfortable scenario. And I'm not saying would have made the other ones better, but that is something that, you know, that's part of why I think this franchise continues to work. Because, like, I can imagine there's probably people. I mean, I know there are people who swear by one of these movies and don't really fuck with the rest of them. Especially seen that for the Raimi movies. I'd say, in my experience, it's especially 2 or 3. But there's definitely also some where it's 1. But in my opinion, well, inarguably, each of these has at least one thing that the rest of them do not. And in my opinion, and I appreciate that technically, you could say that about a lot of horror franchises. What makes this work so well is at least one thing that we hadn't seen in one of the other movies that is really interesting in each of these. It's and yeah, I think it's you know it's a good way to help. Each of them have something that makes them distinct. And obviously, I'm not saying that this is the first horror movie to have something really tense before the horror enters. But I would definitely argue that it's the first in this franchise that where it's quite this tense and in such a complicated way. Obviously, the two most the remake and Rise also do have something, but it's more like elevator pitch kind of. Oh, okay, that's what's going on. Where here, like, there's some unpacking that needs to happen, and in when it starts, I mean, by the end, I would say I understood all of it well, and yeah, I think that does. Yeah, it uses the characters really well. Now, the setup and payoff is quite well done. There are some things where it is, like, very clear, well, that's definitely going to come back later, but you might not be able to guess exactly what, yeah, what they're going to do with it. And yeah, I would definitely say there's no payoff without setup, and vice versa in this. And yeah, tension and suspense is tremendous. Like, I genuinely was on the edge of my seat, and I was definitely not the only person um, in the theater for whom that was the case. And I that's also part of what works so goddamn well about these, because there's like, I remember other horror movies from around the time of the remake that were just not that interested in Because like for a while, if you were making a horror movie, then the tension and suspense was the bread and butter. Like violence and gore were not always. I suppose maybe at the very start there was at least some, but it wasn't always such a big part of horror as in recent decades. And yeah, they had to actually work to get you. They couldn't just show you something extreme. And I appreciate, I'm not opposed to that. I love 1982's The Thing, and I want to say 1986's The Fly. So not to mention Videodrome. I love movies that have this really shocking stuff. I just think it's best when there's other stuff as well. And so far, these have always had, when Raimi was in charge, I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to belabor the point here, but, he brought this kind of Hitchcockian sensibility to it, which was not very common for 80s horror, so that is, and yeah, in these more recent ones, yeah, I'm gonna move on. So let's see. Yeah, I thought they did well on the psychological accuracy as well. Um, this was easily the time that I felt the most like, okay, these characters are very clearly defined, but not like just hollow stereotypes. Like there was at least one character where I was like, oh, this is gonna be this person for the entire movie. And then as the movie progressed, it was like, oh, there really is more going on there, So because I'm willing to acknowledge some of the others, I don't think it's a problem for them, but I really appreciate that they are moving in this direction with these as they make more of them. It is very much the case of so some horror, you sit down and watch, and after a while you realize, oh, this is one of those where they're like, well, characters. I mean, that's someone we can fuck up, maybe fuck with in the movie, right? That's the point of characters in a horror movie. And then there's others where it's like, if there's, in any character in a horror movie is an opportunity. You can have them say or do something, or have and or something said or done to them that is deeply impactful. I don't know. Actually, it kind of takes me back to like fucking the original Hellraiser. Like you watch that and it's like, yeah, they really thought about who these characters are, what they do, and why. And yeah, I feel like that leads to the more complex horror. And yeah, the yeah, it was definitely a movie where I always felt like I understood why someone was saying or doing what they were. And yeah, as usual, the authenticity to like real life is of course like, yeah, we want to have fun more than be like, it's not a documentary, mom. But it very much stays true to itself. It never, ever, ever for a fucking second felt like it was holding back. I've seen others call it the evilest Evil Dead yet, and that is a good way to put it. And yeah, the level of detail, like there was at least one thing that I thought might be they might go more into than they ended up doing, but it always felt appropriate, and there was never a time where something, yeah. Moving on. So the tonally, we are still. So I appreciate that some people dislike this aspect, but I do think that it was wise that after Sam Raimi was no longer directing these, they have not really tried to make something that has the same kind of horror comedy, EC comics kind of, vibe since. I think we would just be sitting there saying, well, Raimi would have made that funnier. And I appreciate that they are, because like I would take issue if these were starting to get boring or stale. I mean, listen, the day that, as much as I absolutely love the trilogy of the dead, the day that we get one of these and it's like, okay, I'm sorry, you're just copying Romero, I'm gonna call that out unless they really, really make it work. That is not at all what we get in these. But yeah, and like the other recent ones, the Deadites are genuinely evil. It's not the fun, campy kind of just mean assholes that we get in Raimi's. And I guess that pretty much. I will say there are some jokes here, um, including some very morbid ones. I also really felt like they made great use of the concept that they came up with here, which I don't think I'm going to give away. It's very easy to find out. If you just want the basic, there's plenty of places online where you can find out without spoiling very much. And yeah, they bring just enough new ideas to the whole Evil Dead thing that it does not, at least to me, feel like, oh, we're just gonna go. Because I appreciate, like, this is it the shortest? I guess, well, let's see. I guess it's tied, isn't it? Yeah, it's 3 years. That was also the amount of time between 2 and 3. But yeah, it's not since 1990. I feel old. Have we seen such a fast turnaround, and I'm really fucking glad, like, because I said that in my video for Rise, like, we're gonna have to wait like a fucking decade or more again, but yeah, this time, like, and if I understand correctly, we're supposed to be getting another one, is it just a few years from now? So that's awesome, like, as long as they keep having ideas. And I'm also really loving, so we have 3 so far of these, the post Raimi. All 3 were directed by different people, and I have yet to watch more Lee Cronin, who directed Rise. I am definitely eyeing. I did seriously consider going to watch The Mummy, but there's so many fucking movies in theaters. I really have to pace myself, or I'm just gonna get burnt out. Um, Fede Alvarez, I thought also, in addition to the remake, thought he did fantastic on Alien Romulus. And I would also like to watch more. Let's see. I went to Just Watch and asked it to alert me if if there is somewhere that I can watch. I forget if it's just it might be just one movie that he's made before this one. I forget, but yeah. And yeah, because like each of these, that helps make each of these distinct, and obviously I'm not saying that it was a bad thing that Raimi made 3. I fucking wish that he had been able to make the, if he had made the second one first, if he had had the money for that, and then the second one would have been Army, and the third one would have been Ash and robots versus the Evil Dead. That would have, I'm still, I really hope that. I mean, apparently, well, are they still working on that? It's been a while since I heard about, but I know at least at one point they were making, more of. Well, let's see. I guess they were making an animated sequel show to the TV, the live action TV show we got. But I could absolutely imagine, considering the ending of the show sets that up. But yeah. Anyway, I guess that does cover the Yeah, the dialogue is quite good. Everyone has their own distinct voice. It's written and delivered well, and there are so many little things where something is being very pointedly said, or maybe something goes unsaid, or yeah, very, very nicely done. So I um I was quite impressed by the direction. It never loses track of and there are times where it looks like it might because things get chaotic, you know. Um it never to me. I was always, invested. And yeah, the cinematography and editing continue to be such strong suits of this franchise. Like visually, I remain deeply impressed, like in general. But yeah, there's that's another thing that I really love that they don't try to. Fuck. Okay, so it's already saying that the fucking quality is maybe gonna dip. Sorry, nothing I can do about it, unfortunately. But the yeah, let's see. The they don't try to just copy Raimi. They come up with something new, but each time there is a really dynamic camera. I think that's also part of why these continue to be so so compelling. You got to see what the new one comes up with as far as that goes, and yeah, I believe that pretty much. Yeah, so the right, I guess this is a decent enough time to say I also really appreciated that this one. I really felt like they when they were yeah, probably just like even in pre-production it must have been they were like, listen, let's not go overboard with the fucking references this goddamn time because like that is something you know in both the remake and Rise, I do think they are a little bit. It almost feels like contractual, and I'm almost 100% certain it's not. It feels like no, this is what. Yeah, I mean, I know Fede Alvarez has talked about like growing up loving Evil Dead. He wanted to pay tribute. It wasn't that someone made him, but and I respect filming it. I just think it might not be the worst thing to just have it as a bonus thing on the DVD or something. But yeah, in this one, like there were times where I was like, well, here we go with it. Oh, never mind. Great, because like I genuinely more so than ever before, and this has always been a strong suit of this franchise. I genuinely never knew where it was going to go next, what exactly was going to happen, or how. And yeah, so the I guess that pretty much covers. Um, yeah, I also really appreciate the editing. There are times where it really has us sit with something where we're just like, please move on. I get it. That's fucked up in a good way. I mean, I'm not. It's not criticism. It's just, like the movie's not for the faint of heart. But I mean, none of these are. Like I don't know. I guess okay. I've heard about a bunch of people who watched Army of Darkness when they were like kids and have loved it ever since. I mean, I can see that. That one is, I mean, it's still got a lot of blood, but, gore-wise, it's nowhere near as intense as the rest of these. But, yeah, I would not show it to a child. Anyway, right, and the cinematography also, God, sometimes the camera will linger in a way that is wonderfully upsetting. And yeah, I guess that does pretty much. Yeah. So I was also quite impressed by production value, set design, locations, costumes, and makeup. The way that they will convey things about the characters. We see this this place that is home to at least one character, and yeah, it really conveys a lot. In yeah, and yeah, like production value, like it feels expensive. Like I know some people felt these were better back when they didn't have as much money. That actually, I've seen some of the people who prefer the first said that that's one of the things. Like it was, you could tell they did not have a lot of money, and I respect that. If that's your opinion, this one is not going to change your mind. And if one of these is really holding back, then I would be like, okay, the fact that you have more money to make it doesn't justify making it if you're gonna hold back. But once again, like none of these, yeah, Army of Darkness is the one time where it was like, okay, you're holding back, and I don't blame Raimi. I understand he was under pressure. And let's see. So but yeah, fantastic location scouting, and just the way that these sets, built and carefully arranged to really just pitch perfect. Felt so lived in and real in a way that greatly heightens what we're seeing. This was also the best as far as the setting, in my opinion. Rise is also very, very high on the list. And goddamn, am I glad that we are. I'm sorry if there is one thing that I would say I do not need to see ever again in one of these, it's that motherfucking cabin. So please, please steer the fuck clear of it. It's just like, I'm not saying that one of those movies is bad. I love them all. But like, okay, so there are at this point 6 Evil Dead feature films, like official, 3 of them have the fucking cabin. I don't think we need it ever again. And yeah, those are some of the things I really appreciate about this and Rise. And like Rise, this familiarizes you with the location. But fair enough. That actually does go for all of them. But yeah, before shit hits the fan, I don't know why someone decided to throw feces at someone who was just excited about a piece of media. That's between them. Now, let's see. I guess that does bring us to, yeah. As far as makeup goes, this has some of the best prosthetic effects, just phenomenal. And that again, oh my god, I hope they never change on that. That is, yeah. The music is really, really great. The there is at least one sort of needle drop, and also some score, and all of it incredibly effective, works exactly the way that they want it to. And yeah, just the way that the music is so foreboding and oppressive, really fitting the general tone. And yeah, the sound design also, some of the most fucked up shit we see. Part of why it works so well is the sound design, and oh my god, just amazing. And yeah, as far as characters go, good variety, and with each of them, like I felt like I got to know them. I got a good sense of who they are and what the relationship is with the other characters and such. And yeah, you know, uh, yeah, that's a spoiler. I'll have to save that one for. What I will say is I didn't feel like there was any character here where I was just like, oh, this person really. But then, even at Raimi's most, lovingly obnoxious, I never felt like that. So that is again just a consistent, you know, yeah, all of these get that right. And yeah, the acting is fantastic. I don't know how they do it, but to me, we have not seen one bad Deadite performance. I genuinely am so impressed. Like there are not that many other properties where I can say that about. Yeah. Well, let's see. I guess I will also extend that to. So I'm I guess about halfway through season 2 of Fear the Walking Dead, which means I have watched the first 6 seasons of the main Walking Dead show. Those it is also true of um, for the Walkers. Anyway, I guess that does pretty much bring us to so the pacing. I am willing to acknowledge that I too do not love that this is longer than 90 minutes because this is a franchise where their brevity is the soul, and yeah, I I don't think that it is too long, but I appreciate that it definitely and it's never boring in my opinion. Yeah, I think it's more the thing that I'm gonna give a trigger warning for at the start of the thought section. That is at least something of an issue there. But yeah, I yeah. So the and it also is like you know like the rest of these, it has something really significant happen so early on that even if then spends a little bit of time setting things up, it doesn't actually like that doesn't mean that you have to wait a really long time without something that is really notable as far as horror goes. So I already mentioned the prosthetic. In general, the effects here are fantastic and clearly like they really made a sincere effort to keep it practical whenever practical. And yeah, like I don't think there's a single bad effect here. Um, the stunt work is also phenomenal. I will say if one of your favorite things about Rise was, I want to say her name is Alyssa Sunderland. I'm sorry, my wrists are too fucking sore to look anything up right now. As it should be. Um, then I would not really say that this one has something quite equivalent. But I also just think, I mean, we also have not had a body melt since the first movie. Like, there's just some things where, listen, if you get it in one, if you try again, it's just gonna be, I mean, shit, I guess that's a spoiler. There are franchises where they will try to recapture something and it just ends up awkward and embarrassing. And I'm really, really glad that they, in my opinion, have not done that in this. And there's other amazing stuff that, yeah. I guess that does pretty much cover. So yeah, as a horror, um, it manages to it's at first there is a you know gradual buildup, and it's not to say that the movie itself, yeah, once again, it's not boring, but it's yeah, and it is consistently very scary and upsetting. There's a thick layer of tension from the start, and yeah, the quality, variety, and delivery of the horror elements is incredible throughout. Like, just yeah. Right, and I mean, even if you have watched the trailers, trust me, there's a lot they don't show. I definitely watched those freaking trailers a bunch of times. Now, yeah, I, I've pretty much said everything I wanted to about the violence and such. I'll just briefly note that on Reddit, I know, I have a very curated Reddit. Okay, I stay away from the fucked up shit on there. But there's this ad recently for this, and I don't know if this is only here in Denmark, but I'll translate it. So, how much blood? Evil Dead, and then question mark. Evil Dead Burn. Yes. And yeah, there are 2 post-credit scenes. I am gonna discuss them in the thoughts section. I will definitely say that a lot of people are going to want to stay until the very end, because that last one, the second of the post-credit scenes, that is quite something. Yeah, updated ranking, in my opinion, this is the best so far, and yeah, it gets, this franchise has scored incredibly well. This is yet another 10 deeply disturbing, fucked up situations involving deadites out of 10. And that brings us to the thoughts section. So once again, from here on out, I'm spoiling everything about this movie, and I will start, as promised, by noting, the trigger warning here for the movie, if you haven't watched it already, and for the rest of this video, because I'm going to discuss it, is domestic abuse. And I think I'm gonna try to keep this mostly chronological. So I will start by expressing just a tiny bit of bewilderment, because I'm genuinely not entirely sure the no, yeah, I guess they are changing the rules at least somewhat, or well, let's see. I saw someone theorize. Well, I mean, as at the end of Rise, we saw there were still, we didn't see, what was her name, Jessica. We didn't see her be defeated, so And I did at first wonder if that opening Deadite was her, but I don't know. It doesn't quite look the way I remember her looking, and it wasn't very long ago that I watched that movie. I don't know, a week ago, maybe by now, something like that. But what was the other thing that I wanted to say about? But no, yeah, we have the thing about, like, well, if the Kandarian dagger is uncovered, they will be able to find it, and that's why she attacks, so that she can kill Will, and quite willfully. And I did think that that was a clever new thing, because, like, the Kandarian dagger is not new, but outside of the show, it's not necessarily the most, like, plot significant item in these. And once again, that's fine, but I do think this is a good way to get us to the and this thing of, like, clearly they can't sniff it out perfectly. They can just, like, yeah, oh shit, they just knew that it was with Will's family, because, like, I guess it's a faster way to go there also, than traveling, since it was a car ride away. But once there are deadites inside the old family home, they're not just going around, like, trying to sniff out the dagger. They're trying to get Joe to tell them where it is. So that is a genuinely cool way to, you know, because to this new element is because we've by now seen, that's again one of the things that I really appreciate about these. Every single time, every single sequel, the first one was the original. It did various things that we hadn't really seen before, or at least were not like, it wasn't old hat at that point. And then each of the sequels is like, okay, what's something we didn't see before? Again. And with this one, yeah, because like by now, we get it. Okay, there's deadites and there's survivors, and there's going to be some struggling. But this thing of like, okay, so the weapon to use against them is somewhere in this building, and they're going to keep torturing until they get an answer about where it is, and maybe Alice can get it before, that was a really, really cool way to, and it's like this, it's essentially guerrilla tactics, this thing of like taking their strengths and turning it into your own. Because like, yeah, if you're alone against even one deadite, the fact that they take their sweet time really tormenting you before turning and or killing you, that's a strength of theirs that inspires so much terror in anyone who knows about it, and just the person who's experiencing it. It has what's the word, de um what's it called, it's got this effect of making you lose hope, not fighting them. But if you're not alone and the other person there knows, okay, so the weapon is somewhere nearby and they're looking for it, then it's actually to their benefit that the deadite is taking forever. Because like the thing is, if let's see, as soon as they hear that Joe knows, he claims to know exactly where it is, and yeah, they hyper focus on him and neglect Alice, and she, so that's a very good, and we also have this element, they've always felt superior to humans. They've always, expressed that, yeah, and once again, that's not a weakness of theirs if they're keeping a close eye on everyone who's a potential threat. But as soon as they take their eye off, our final girl. Anyway, I'm getting way ahead. Yeah. So the opening, we get the voiceover. Appreciate that they basically got it out of the way, because like we, it's better if we know when we see the deadite that takes out the fisherman, if we already know what the gist is about deadites. And not everyone's going to have watched an Evil Dead movie before. Like, I don't know, maybe someone just turned 18, or wait, I guess in America it's 16, whatever, and is now legally allowed to watch one of these, you know so they just go for this one. And shit, meant to say that in the review as well. Still the case, you can watch just one of these and be fine. You're not going to have missed something significant. The Raimi trilogy have some continuity. There's some stuff that's a little, wait, is this still? Anyway, but, the movies 2 and 3 open with a recap. But yeah, and Joe finds the dagger, and immediately, there's the attack. And I preferred this opening kill to the one in Rise, I gotta say. Especially because the one in Rise really felt like I can practically see the door being kicked down by a studio exec, and they're like, there is no way we are releasing an Evil Dead movie if there isn't at least one scene set in a motherfucking cabin in the goddamn woods. It is a completely unnecessary scene. It's basically there for the opening kill kind of thing, and I respect people who think that that's important for horror movies. I think they're, some of the best horror movies ever made don't have one, but okay. it's just the fact that it's so completely, it doesn't add anything, where here it leads directly into, like she was just on the way to Will, but if she finds some humans along the way, she's gonna fuck them up. Like, this is a deadite, and that is such a great, and it also feels, because once again, they like to take their time. They like to fuck with us. And that's one of the things that make them such effective. I mean, when you think about it, this is a franchise that is, let's see, 45 years old by now. There's a lot of horror franchises that don't last a fraction of that amount of time, but the way that from the first film it's been clearly established, and it's been, underlined in the sequels, they just want us to suffer. There is no like, oh, you are trespassing and I will scare you away from it. No, 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 no. They will fuck with you until you are one of them and or dead. And then if they can, they'll find someone else to fuck with. And that's just what they do, and yeah. The They also did a great job of it, because these characters have almost no screen time, but you just get this brief thing of like, "Ugh, your girlfriend keeps on calling you, don't answer the phone." And the other guy's like, "It might be an emergency." What the fuck, and that's, yeah. I've known guys who are, to be clear, I'm 100% on the side of, it could be an emergency. Of course I'm going to answer the fucking phone. I've met so many guys, young men, who are the other guy, and like, genuinely, just fucking stop, okay? Like, literally, unless you genuinely think your friend's partner is being abusive, don't fucking tell them not to answer the fucking phone. Just, yeah. And yeah, so that isolates the other guy, and then, um there's a bite, more than they bargained for. And yeah, it's so fucking cool with the, let's see, first it's the shit, I think it is it the head from Right Away, or no, wait, no, yeah, I think that's a little later. The but there's yeah, he gets into yeah, he gets like dragged in by the line, I think, is what happens. And you know he yeah, so the other guy comes back, and we see, like, yeah, it was a short conversation. There was just like, maybe she need to check on something or something. And we hear him say, "I'm coming home now," which, like, suggests to me that these two have been wasting a bunch of time here, just like, yeah. Anyway, the I guess that brings us, yeah. And so he's like, quit fucking around, where are you?" And then he sees him pop up out in the water, and like, well, he's gonna have to help. So he gets in the little fucking dinghy, I think it's called, and gets out there. And then oh my god, the part where, let's see, I think first he grabs him and drags him in, and like the way the face gets fucked up, I love the fucking hook in the mouth. That is going to be a PETA ad, and I don't know that anyone can say anything to convince me otherwise, or inspire one, maybe. And the let's see, I guess, yeah. And so he manages to drag him up, but the face gets completely fucked up, and it's only, he's only half the man he used to be. And then the Deadeye just like tips over the boat, so the guy ends up in the water. And it's such effective, because again, I love the way they're still managing to take the mundane and turn it horrifying. Because throughout these, I mean, in the first one, like, yeah, like going out into the woods and spending a little time there, like, if you live close enough to the woods, if you don't hate the idea, just on principle, there's some chance you've done something like that, or know someone who has, and let's see, yeah, and then she makes the water boil, and he does manage to get out of it alive, but it's completely fucked up. Just, yeah, very, very effective there. And so she stands in the middle of the road for hours. Or wait, was she standing in the middle? Oh, fuck. She's standing there, and she makes sure to step in front of his car. Right now, I forget if she was standing in the middle of the road for hours, but, and that is such a fucking cool... So, expansion, I think, is the word. Because they've had some degree of psychic power from the start. In the first one, in Rise, we have the thing, the first one is playing cards. In Rise, it's reading the book. And then, here, I mean, she can see the fucking future, because I love the shot that, it's clear, like, hours have passed. Look at the light change, She knew that he would drive down that exact road, and that she could get him like that if she just waited. That is really, because, like, there's so many drivers who that would never work on. They would be way too careful. I mean, what the fuck is he gonna do? Like, just run into the car or something? No, she knew that he. I mean, look at the way she stands. She clearly knew he's going to ram directly into me here. And I also appreciated at first I wasn't sure that's what it was, but eventually after minutes it became clear. Yeah, they jumped back in time. First we see the her be hit by the car, and then we jump back in time to to meet the guy who hits her. And I thought they did a great job of, because it is this thing of, like, when she gets hit by the car, at first I was thinking, like, the driver do that on purpose? Because it wasn't slowing down or swerving or anything. But yeah, and I really felt like they did a great job on Will. Kudos to the actor. I love to hate Will. I guess this is a decent enough time to say I do agree with those who say that this is not the best way to handle domestic abuse. It is obviously something, it's such a big problem that it needs to be addressed. But, I mean, I would say look to the movies that are sensitive but also confrontational regarding complex topics. Maybe I mentioned it too much, but I do think The Babadook, I'm not saying it's a flawless film, just extremely close, but certainly I have no, it does such a great job with exactly what it's commenting on, which I'm not going to say here because that's a spoiler, but you know, that movie is more, yeah, one of the things is that it's so heavily focused on it, where for a bunch of this, it's like the in-laws from hell. Will is there at the start and the end, and his presence is felt throughout, but he's not on screen outside of flashbacks for most of this film in a movie that is exploring domestic abuse, which I think if it was exclusively about just someone died and their loved ones have to deal with the fact that they weren't perfect and there's some complex feelings, that I do think it does a good job with, but that's not the entirety of what it's doing. Once you bring domestic abuse into it, that is of yeah, especially doing as much with it as the film does. What I will definitely also, one thing I really wanted to underline, I don't think it was inherently bad that they had multiple people say, did you stay because you wanted it? But I think, let's see, it was said at least 3 times and I think 2 of them were by Will. And once again, keep in mind, he's not in very much of the movie, so within, I don't know, 5 minutes, he says it twice, maybe 10. That I felt like was excessive. Um, yeah, I think that brings us, but yeah, they did a really great job. Like, immediately we see there's tension here. We have the thing about the, yeah, I think the first thing is the champagne, this thing of like, that would be the third bottle. Yeah, but it's your brother's birthday, and then we see. Let's see. I think it's especially in the wedding video we see it's not any of the others. It's Will who has a drinking problem. And I'm not saying that to like besmirch anyone who in real life has, but um, it is of course a fact that a number of people will project things like that. That's not just people who struggle in that sort of way. But yeah, and yeah, I think I'll just say blanket. I agree with Alice, but yeah, the bit with the fucking whistle. I'm glad she called him out on that, because like, what the? She's not a fucking dog, asshole. But the yeah, and let's see. I think that is, yeah. So that's when we get to the present, and he says, "So this is from both of us," and yeah, these little tense moments, because like Thea's like, it's just a pen, like what's the big deal? Mm. And Joe recognizes that, oh, this is, it's not just a pen, it's a fucking expensive pen. It's like $1,000. And Will just has to say it's significantly north of that. You're making his point. But then, he starts talking about like, well, I mean, my wife's photos sucked, and then I got her this camera, so maybe now you can finally finish a book. You're on your 5th. Oh, I'm sorry, 4th. I guess I'm the bad guy now. Yeah, you are. That's the, yeah, by choice. And then she gives Joe a picture, and that, or a gift, and immediately Will is like, I didn't know you were also going to give gift. Wow, just like complete controlling asshole. And that is also like, listen, let him take the time he needs to finish what he is writing, just like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, and her photo is substantially more well received of a present, which Will of course cannot handle, which again, like, I, in my opinion, in my experience, people like this deep down know that they're fucking up. They just don't like to be called out on it. They don't want to have to change, Yeah, I think that brings us to, yeah, and so the yeah, she goes to smoke. I will briefly note, so I have by now watched Rise almost half a dozen times. I don't know why it's called Rise, other than, I mean, as the title screen appears, we see a deadite rise out of water. I guess that's it, maybe. But the I don't know. Is the apartment? It's not technically a high rise, right? I don't think. But this movie, I understand why it's called Evil Dead Burn. And yeah, the the red lights, and told it's like an oven. The let's see, is it a club or is it a restaurant? Both. Clestrant. Restaurant dub. And yeah, we have the, let's see, so she is smoking, and you have the thing about like, don't call me boss, and then he comes out, oh, yeah, sure, badmouth me to the staff behind my back, Jesus Christ. And then he drunk drives, and the predictable happens. and yeah, like the others were clearly trying to prevent it, but what else were they going to do? And yeah, oh my God. So also, I thought it worked really well. This whole thing of the cultural differences. So she is French. You know, which is why to her it's called a royale with cheese. And the thing about, oh right, I forget, you Americans love to hug. And like Thea, I was it Tia? There's the subtitles put an H after the T, so I'm thinking the sound, but I forget exactly how they pronounce it. But she is like clearly at least half joking when she's like, "Did you just try to kiss my boyfriend?" Like obviously she's like, you just have to say it out loud just to be like, that was awkward. But clearly Will is like, are you trying to cheat on me with my own brother? Wow. To quote the funeral director. And anyway, yeah, fantastic car crash. Um, I guess it's just Will's shitty luck that he could not use magic to fix his situation. And yeah, the bit with so she's like stuck in the car and her head's like being cut off by just fucking amazing. Loved it. And yeah, she says something like, we found you. God damn. And the fire starts and he gets fucking flame broiled inside the car after she's at, and he points out later, your last words to me were go to hell. I didn't mean that literally. And I guess that pretty much brings us. So yeah, the camera, we cut and we see Alice looking very sad. So yeah, it would appear that she has heard that he is dead, and that is of course confirmed not long after. And yeah, I really appreciate. I love that modern movies don't feel the need to, because like we know what was said, like we saw what happened. We don't need someone else to say it to a character. We just need to. It's her reaction that's interesting, And then we see she's taken off the ring, and we were told she's not sleeping, and nobody in the film is fully like empathetic towards. I'd say Tia's probably the one that comes the closest. Joe also pretty close, but not funeral director and not the in-laws. They're the rest of the in-laws rather. Yeah, like if she's not sleeping, and actually I forget. I think I knew once. I forget if do French people not do eulogies maybe, or I mean I think it may also be. I could imagine it's simply the fact that what is she gonna get up there in front of a bunch of people who don't want her there, who can't stand her, and pretend like her now late husband wasn't horrible to her? Like that feels so fucked up. And it is one of those things of like, I don't think we should pressure. There is like social pressure on people who are like, oh, don't speak ill of the dead. So we're just supposed to pretend like they were fucking angels? I'm a big believer in, we have to process our complex emotions about those we have lost. And that starts with admitting that they weren't perfect. Nobody's perfect. Perfection is unattainable, but it is nice to try to strive towards, as long as you are not, letting it just crush you that you are not reaching it, because no one ever will. But I think I appreciate the little detail, when she gets there, Thea is like, oh, let me just fix up your makeup, and I'm one of those people. I don't think that women should feel pressure to, you know, look a certain way or any, no one should. But I'm just saying, for women, it can be very, very intense in a way that just doesn't really seem like it's the case with men. But if you're, I've heard from women that if you're going to be around someone who already doesn't like you, you don't want to give them ammo. And one of the first things people notice about a woman is her appearance, and they will judge her very harshly. Yeah. So let's see. I guess that pretty much. Yeah, and so we get the setup of the little what's it called again? First aid kit, which they try to use later on Victor. Was that his name? The father. Yeah. But yeah, and as soon as we see the rest of the in-laws, immediately it is like, oh shit, they really don't want to, And I did also like the thing like, none of them even want me here. Why did you invite me? Listen, my mother is so grateful that you agreed to cremation. Now my father hates your guts. And it's such a great, because it's funny. There's a relief there, but at the same time, it's also like, yeah, he kind of fucking does. Like, I do think Susan also hates, but Joe is trying to be nice, and it's such a great, because like we can see very clearly these two brothers. Will was just he's just perfect. So Joe is like a sort of mediator. He has to like tiptoe around, because everybody knows it. Like, we see it in his face when Will is berating him about writing, not finishing the books. Like, dude, that's a fucking right. Okay, so your brother's a writer is what you're really saying. Like, I'm sorry, that's really not that uncommon. There are let's see, is it I want to say George R. Martin. Wasn't there at least one book he promised years and years ago that yeah, that's a thing that happens. And yeah, the so yeah, Joe is always trying to just be polite and not stir things up, kind of. Yeah. And that is when we get the service. And yeah, oh my God, the thing with, okay, so they promised that they would, be done by 12. They're going to be done any moment now. And then, the service is hampered by that, you know. And it's again this thing of like, it's a very different form of humor. It's not the kind of campy that Raimi did, but it is morbidly funny, and tense. So it is like, yeah, it's like, for example, Ash seeing things that we realize, okay, some of that has to be that, some of that can't possibly be there. There is a tension there because he's alone and he's struggling with his mental health, but it's also funny. Like, if you can't laugh along when a entire room of inanimate objects starts laughing in, like, with nice distinct forms of laughter as well, and like puppeteering to make it look like the mouths moving and shit. I don't even know how to talk to you. That's fucking hilarious. But yeah, the thing about, and oh my God, so yeah, Susan gets up there, and yeah, immediately we're thinking like, oh my God. But of course she's gonna say that because she can't admit his problems. She's like, oh, he was such a sweet boy, and then he became a teenager, and he was even better, and then he became a man. And I don't know, some part of me just feels like that's really when he peaked. And yeah, and then you have the thing of, so Alice, why don't you get up here and just bold-faced lie about this man who made you miserable, you know. And yeah, she just says, yeah, I didn't prepare anything. And the funeral director doesn't just say, well, that's okay, we have some music. She goes like, okay, wow. Jesus fucking Christ. I'm sorry. Once again, that is both tense and funny. Like, imagine having that little tact. I don't know. Okay, fair enough. You want tact, you call a tactician. But still, that really, goddamn. And then we have the bit with the coffin being taken out, and we have that brief moment where I could feel the entire theater be like, don't fucking drop it. Don't drop it, you know, because like we know what his corpse must look like. We saw him die, you know. There's yeah, and he's about to be cremated. He got a head start on it, but you know, it's you want to be thorough. And yeah, just it's fun little bit of characterization that, you know, he puts on this yeah, uh it was rap, wasn't it? God damn, my fucking short-term memory. And he's like mouthing along to the words, and just, yeah, because it's like, how the fuck else do you stay, you know, happy if this is your job? If you know, burning corpses is what you do for a living. And then, you know, there's a knock, and so he opens and does ultimately let him in. And I appreciate the thing about it, because at this point I was also like, I already like, ugh, you know, father's an asshole, because we have the thing with like, you know, oh, doggy, hi Max, I remember you. And then he whistles for the dog, and just what a fucking asshole. Like, let her play with the dog, she's not fucking hurting it. And I was a tiny bit worried that he was gonna say something really fucking racist or something. But not only does he not do that, he addresses, you know, so this like middle-aged, or I guess senior freaking citizen at this point, white guy is addressing a black man that is technically sort of working for him. I mean, they are paying to have him cremate the, you know, Will, um, extra crispy recipe, in case you're wondering. And he calls him sir, and asks nicely and says, please, I just need to say goodbye to my son. This is the last chance I'm ever going to get, you know. Like, he's pushy, yes, but he's not, you know. I appreciated that detail, because this would have been such an easy moment. There's a lot of movies that would have gone for, you know, oh, let's make the audience hate everything about him. But yeah, like, he genuinely, because that is the thing, like, when we're seeing, you know, until he becomes a deadite, at that point it's, you know, different dynamic. But yeah, you know, when he is really tense with the others, he's grieving. You know, to him, this boy was perfect. You know, it's and that is also like, there's a generational thing there where, you know, Alice is of a generation where, you know, there's perhaps more honesty about like, listen, I'm sorry, this person's an asshole and we should cut them out of our lives, versus this, like, I would say probably boomer generation where, you know, a number of them just refuse to admit, I'm sorry, this, you know. And I get it. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy to admit, you know, my kid's a fucking asshole, but it is healthy. You know, like, there are very few problems in this world that we can solve before we've admitted that they exist. So, yeah, it was great with, you know, so he's standing there, he's so sad, and then we hear knocking, and he goes up to the door, and he's like, was that really 5 minutes, all right? There's no one there. And the door is still open, and then he hears knocking, and then we're like, it's the fucking coffin. That's such an excellent moment. And it's again, like, I don't know, I suppose you could argue maybe it's at least slight reference to that one bit in the third season of the show, but it felt so distinctly different, you know. And again, like, that's the thing, these have always been about, you know, someone dying and then becoming, well, let's see, I guess sometimes they become a deadite before they die, but yeah, you know, this thing of like, you can't kill a deadite in the way you could kill a human. And so Yeah, it's really effective, and I love this detail of he actually does burn the things he touches now, even though like he's no longer on fire, but yeah. And that's also just such a great like notice how he because he burned her when he was still alive, and he grabbed her without her permission hard, and he's still grabbing people. He's still putting his hands where he shouldn't and causing harm. And that does, that aspect works for this for the exploration of domestic abuse. Now, I guess that does bring us nicely to I really appreciated that they had sort of a slow turn for him because, some of these movies, someone, as soon as they're attacked in a way that could turn them, they turn almost immediately. And I do think there's a lot of great to that. I think it works very well in the other two recent ones, but I really appreciated to hear because I was, not just me, everyone was just sitting there thinking, has he turned? Has he turned? Because he's like trying to start the fucking I forget what it's called, but it's not quite a chainsaw, so there's some variety there. It's not a direct reference, you could say. But then when Joe talks to him, he does respond, and he responds like a human being. There's some irritation there, but he's not. It's not like deadite kind of thing, So yeah, and we get the setup for the later payoff. We gotta put some it needs gas, and later it gets gas. And then we have the dinner, and I swear I'm not gonna do the full play-by-play because yeah, I mean, presumably you've already watched the movie if you watched this long into the video. Yeah, it's fucking amazing. Every single line, all the little things of like, are you blaming me? No, I'm not blaming you. All the little things and the way that right because she catches him, and he's hearing Will's voice, and he starts cutting, and then he begs, please don't tell my wife, but I definitely got the sense that while she honored that request, she did tell both Tia and Joe, or Joseph, but yeah, the thing about, so he goes for the knife, and it's like, oh please, you know what, why don't I just take that and slide it over, and it's like, you know what, you don't have to open the bottle. I'll make sure to do that. And then later he does reach over and grab it, and slowly, and we just know something's gonna get fucked up, and he keeps also yelling at the dog, and then eventually he attacks it, and I was not prepared for Dead-Eye Dog, but it's yeah, fantastic. We haven't seen very much of this. It's usually humans, or at least humanoids in a couple of cases, but yeah, that is a very fun way to, because again, it's really fucked up, and yeah, Max is the attack dog for the father for the rest of the movie, and let's see, yeah, oh my god, that thing about like up above, he's down below. Jesus fucking Christ. And yeah, so they drive off with the father, and we have the thing about the yeah, in the car, and Joe just fucking abandons Tia, and yeah, her fingers getting cut off, and the head rest going through. I love that they made sure it took it took at least a few seconds to just remove the headrest and then attack with it, and just, yeah, fantastic. And also, oh my god, the bit with the lit candle, god damn, that was fantastic. But the yeah, and the all the fucking stabbing that happened in the car, and yeah, the thing with the gun, and then she points out, oh, so you can't shoot your father, but you're happy to kill me. Yeah, that is and I think that I really appreciated that they gave him a chance to redeem himself. I think that is a good thing to have about characters who are, I'm not the biggest fan of the word coward, but I do think here it does kind of apply. He proves, by the end, that he does have it in him to, he sacrifices himself. Because he could, so, if he was still a coward by the end, then he would have just told them, Alice is right there. She knows where the dagger is. I mean, are they gonna know? And are they gonna care? But he knows where Alice is and tells her, get the dagger. But yeah, so right. Also the thing with the restaurant, and she's like, no, actually, no. If I'm going to keep running the risk, why would she? She was, it wasn't her, or let's see, no, it was Will's dream. She married into that, and yeah, while he was while when they were on good terms, sure. But is she going to keep working in a place that was his dream after he's dead, after he abused her? And the thing with, like, the food's not that good. She's just trying to be nice. She's trying to make sure this situation isn't more tense than, because, like, the thing is, if she had said, like, I don't know, I think it's okay not to serve anything more extravagant than this, Susan might be like, are you calling me a bad host? Is that supposed to be sarcasm? It's an impossible situation. And if she says nothing, it's like, what's wrong with you? Can't cut your tongue? Just complete, yeah. I'll briefly note, don't know if I love, I think her name was Polly, the grandmother. How much of it was played for laughs? I don't think it was a bad element that it was there at all. I thought it worked, for example, when, Joe comes in. It's like, so where are the others? Or where, let's see. Where's Susan? She's at school. They get out at 4. Thank you, Grandma. That's like, that's a good character moment for both of them, and I appreciated that they set it up, because later they subverted with, finally Polly calls her Susan, and it's clear the deadite has, a Canarian demon has turned her into a deadite. But the fact that so much of it was jokes, I don't know. I didn't necessarily love that. Anyway, I guess that does get us nicely to the right. Also, the wedding video, and just, yeah, various little things. Fantastic. I love later when it's still playing and we see him drink, and then he sees, oh, I'm being filmed, and he turns and he smiles at the camera and it zooms in, and then someone or something gets, like, smashed against the TV, so it freezes on that image. He says, it's a horrifying fucking smile. Fantastic. And let's see. I guess that does right. I appreciated the line, I am nothing without my family. That is, of course, how a number of women have felt. She also talked, yeah, Alice points out, it's kind of a shame, like, you were so creative, you were so talented, you had to give it up. And she's like, what do you mean? What is that? And that, again, is like a generational thing, because, like, Alice appreciates, as, like, hopefully one day everyone will, it's kind of sad when, like, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that you regret it, but just, like, it's not bad to acknowledge, hey, there was really something amazing here, and clearly, like, yeah, Alice is thinking, like, how much are we supposed to give up for, and I mean, in the case of Susan, it wasn't to someone who was abusing her, but, yeah, Alice is thinking, like, yeah. And she also talks about, I mean, she might go back to Paris, maybe live with her dad for a while. And then they start talking about, oh, so you've made up your mind. She didn't say that. She said that's what she's considering. She didn't say, like, I'm leaving Tuesday, drive me to the airport. She just said, that's what I'm thinking right now, And, like, I mean, it's a fucking restaurant. Like, you can sell it, you can hire someone else to take care of it, Why does that have to be her thing just because she married Will? And that, again, like, that is a thing that there are a number of people, maybe especially, older generations, who think that once a woman gets married to a man, and of course they would insist it has to be to a man, no matter how miserable that might make her, she belongs to him, and if he has a dream, then that is now her dream. And that is something we're thankfully seeing younger generations challenge. And I guess that brings us to and we see the bit with some the stuff is taken off the little grill spears. That sounds wrong in English. Is that how y'all say it? That's I'm just translating the Danish words for it. I actually have no idea what those fucking things are called in English. I don't cook in English. What can I say? I'm Danish. But the anyway, Yeah, so, there's a lot of sharp objects, and then they all go into the little, and of course they're standing up. What that's how you load a dishwasher. You want to get that's where most of the food is in the sharp stuff, but that also means that it's now standing there open, and yeah. So first Alice comes back speaking French, which, you know, sounds like Latin to Susan. And then Joe comes back, and then Tia comes back. And it is that great, and typical Deadite using, human voice to trick, but very, very effective still. And yeah, um, she goes in and she drinks a candle. You don't want to drink a candle, do you, Mister? Mrs.? But yeah, and the thing about, like, cheers to your perfect family. So fucking good. And then, yeah, he can't quite bring himself to attack her, even though literally, like, if he stands still, she can't get too much closer to him, but he keeps backing away. And ultimately, she says, boo, he falls back first. And I'm sorry, this is fucking medieval torture shit, and I'm here for it. Like, Jesus Christ, imagine. Because his own body weight is doing some of the damage. Like, gravity is making him slowly be more penetrated by it. And there's so many fucking points of contact too. And then she gets on top and is, like, laughing maniacally, and the weight makes the shit, what's it called? Like, the door of the dishwasher fall off, which of course shoves it in more. Just fucking perfect. Absolutely loved it. I guess I'll just very briefly note, I saw at least one critic say that they felt it worked better when it was like one deadite in a very small area fighting, at least one survivor. But when it was multiple deadites, it got a little out of hand. I agree. And let's see, I guess the next thing, I think that's when she starts, she's about to set fire to all of it. And yeah, we have the thing about, go Joseph. Really? You expect him to finally stand up? And earlier we had the thing about, I think it makes him feel badass. Joe, badass? And yeah, so we have the, let's see. I think that's when yeah, it was great, this thing of, like, I did really appreciate how, like, everyone does, nearly everyone does seem to care about Polly. Alice, it's been a year, but she's got, like, dementia or something and can't quite remember, but she's still trying to be nice to her and take care of her. There's that bit where she wanted to go outside alone, which, like, oh, that is a recipe for disaster right there. So yeah, and she keeps thinking Tia is a thief. And then, you've got the thing about, are you coming back to return what you stole? Yes, I am. And that was that kind of worked as a kind of, I don't know. It still feels a little bit like kicking down, but it was, I wasn't expecting it. I would never have guessed I would get something like that in Evil Dead. And yeah, the bit where, so she goes all the way up to the top, and oh my god, the bit where she licks, and that's of course how the how she gets possessed. And then we have, then Alice comes, attacks. Very, very nicely done. And yeah, I really appreciated the way this was one of the most effective seductions. And that's, again, I'm not saying that all the other ones were trying to be, like, effective. A lot of the time they go for, like, disturbing. Like, it's like, oh, can you imagine if someone close to you were saying this, were behaving like this? And that is scary. But here, like, yeah, the fact that Susan does basically go along with it. She sells her soul to the devil, to bring back Will. And that thing about, do you remember when you said you would do anything? Is this not anything? And yeah, the bathroom, fucking amazing. Apparently they did that with fucking wires. They couldn't afford a rotating set. That is just so fucking surreal to me. Amazing work. That's also some of the best stunt work there. And let's see. So yeah, I think we'll just go up to the part with the yeah. So she's looking for the dagger and she finds a lot of blades. And yeah, like genuinely this thing of like, so she just stabs over and over. That's such a good, because again, it's scary, but it's also a little fun. There's the bit where he said, or the deadite's like, that was the wrong knife. Thank you for the note. I will apply myself, and I will try to find the right thing to stab the supernatural evil with now. I really appreciate. You know what? I am nothing if not open to feedback. And then eventually does find the right one, and climbs on the roof, and then drops the fucking spinny shit. Goddamn. Oh, the fucking bit where Susan is about to turn the thing off and it would cut up. Fucking amazing. Love it. And she manages to, Alice manages to make it out of that situation. And let's see. Yeah, love that the cutting the head. That was a good. So it's not quite as extreme or intense as Rise or the remake, but it is still very, very effective. It didn't feel like a downgrade, just a different thing they were doing there. Yeah, I guess that pretty much brings us to the very end. Yeah, it was a relief when she was able to take out Cujo, and I guess that does pretty much bring us to, yeah. So there at the very end, he does come back, looking like the fucking Terminator, and sets fire to the gazebo, and yeah, really, really effective. Love the bit where she's like hiding the what's it called, the construction equipment, which once again set up and pay off, and ends up in the pit, and there's the fucking thing sticking through. God damn. And she manages to slowly get her, get back off that thing. And yeah, he was gonna fucking drown her in that. Disgusting. And yeah, the thing with like, where's the dagger? You go get it. She threw the other knife, the one that she, very, very nicely done. I believe that was the one she took so that because she was worried that the father was going to cut again, Which also I really appreciate. They did make sure we understand. No, 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 no. Listen, Alice does fucking care about this family. She just doesn't feel like she's very welcome there, but look at how nice she's constantly trying to be. And like, listen, there are people who would be like, oh, my asshole father-in-law is gonna cut, and he's, in front of everyone, might traumatize his wife and the wife's mother, his own son, the surviving one. Sure, go ahead. I fucking hate this asshole. That's like extreme, but not impossible. Some people really fucking hate their in-laws. So yeah, I really appreciated that they went above and beyond there. Now, I think that is the... Yeah, it was also very nicely done, the bit of setup and payoff with the, you have to throw this out right now. So he tries, and then she accidentally knocks it over and sees the Necronomicon. I don't think the movie needed to have her start to read and then be like, fuck this. In the trailer, I actually thought that someone purposefully read from the book because they were just so desperate to bring Will back. Because in the trailer, they have that line, which I actually forget if that appears in that form in the trailer, or maybe it was shot for the trailer, deleted scene, or whatever. But the thing about, like, my grandfather believed that the dead would walk again if you read from the Book of the Dead. So, I mean, that's an explanation for why someone, but it is still just like morbid curiosity, but this time it also just isn't necessary. And I do think it's fine that it isn't necessary because we have the other explanation. And I do also think, this, like, once again, I didn't quite recognize, but maybe that is Jessica. I believe that's her name at least. Maybe it is the Deadite from the end of Rise and start of Rise, technically also, or just someone that was infected by that Deadite. That works for me. I don't think we need each of these to have someone read from the book or listen to a recording of it. I think it is good if they can think of other ways to get around. And you know, based on the post-credit scene, yeah, hypothetically, maybe Polly is in the next one, or maybe Ellie. And I think that does segue us nicely into. Before I get into that, I did want to just very briefly note. Yeah, I thought it was very fair. You know, yeah, we have the thing about like, no, he did this on purpose. It wasn't an accident, and deep down you knew that. And yeah, you know, she fucking smushes his head. Very, very effective, very horrifying. And then there at the end, you know, she gets a cigarette and she's asked, you know, who did this to you? And she says, my ex-husband. So she is admitting that that is what happened, you know, after keeping quiet about it for so long, which there's so much pressure. It's so fucked up on survivors of, among, you know, for example, domestic abuse, to not say anything. And yeah, we really have to start the conversation, and I don't know if the movie is the best at doing that, but I do also appreciate that it recognizes how important it is and is at least trying, if imperfect. I guess that while I try to think of no, yeah, wait, right, I remember now. So yeah, and there at the end we see that her eye is also starting to become deadited, which leaves me delighted. And yeah, I think this one also did a really great job of, so, you know, at this point, I think it's pretty clear we can just come right out and say it's not really an Evil Dead movie if someone is not having something gross, you know, yeah, if it's not, you know, directed at their face. Um, it doesn't have to be a liquid. If I recall correctly, I only have darkness. It's not liquid, but there is the bit with the live burial, you know, but yeah, there, and I thought this one did a great job. I love the bit with the stabbing with the corkscrew, and then it's used to cut the throat, and then, you know, licks, and then a bunch of the blood gets on the face and the mouth. Very nicely done. Good way to, you know, because I don't often remember seeing exactly that before. There's been a lot of vomiting of blood and such in these. Anyway, yeah. So there at the end. No, yeah, shit. I said everything about the end already. Let's see. Yeah, I think the catharsis was great in the, you know, she was able to take out, not just on, but out her abuser. And yeah, so we get the two post-credit scenes, and I'm fine with the Polly one because I do think, you know, this idea of, oh, you know, maybe she's, you know, because there's that thing about like your legs will do just fine. Is she gonna take and like stick the legs on, or is she just scratching them enough that this young woman is now a deadite and it can spread further? You know, maybe that's how. Maybe the next one also has at least one deadite from right away. Maybe it's this young woman. So once again, we don't have to have the. I don't think we need to do away with the book entirely, but if you're gonna at the very, you know, either stop having people read from the book or have an explanation. You know, I think it would be fine if in one of these it actually is that someone is just so desperate. Like I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, so it's like a. It's not really a spoiler, is it? Shit, is that a spoiler? I'll just say it wouldn't be the first story where someone did something extreme because they couldn't cope with the loss of a loved one and it has severe consequences. But I think, right, no Bruce Campbell, although was that him in the picture? I'm trying to be careful to not miss that because I apparently did miss it in Send Help. Watch that again, by the way. Still amazing. Let's see. I guess that pretty much... No, there's at least one more thing, but what the fuck was it? I guess it is the very final post-credit scene. So, I want to make absolutely abundantly clear, with no chance that anybody misunderstands what I'm about to say, I fucking loved Alyssa Sutherland's performance in both of these. I think she is hands down the single best Deadite performer in all, like, counting literally everyone who's done this in live action. All of them. Obviously, Ted Raimi comes very, very close. But in my opinion, she is absolutely the best. I don't know if I love the idea of her coming back. Like, IMDb trivia notes, she's technically the first Deadite to come back after having her body fully destroyed. I guess I'm holding off judgment, because maybe they can do something. Listen, if she is actually in the next one, that could be fucking amazing, because she really was one of the best. I think I'll just very briefly note, overall, I would probably have preferred, and I know I've said this before in other videos on this franchise, I think it could be really cool if they did tie these new ones a little bit more together. I don't know that they necessarily need to reference the trilogy, but to, hypothetically, let's say Jane Levy's Mia, I'm afraid I forget her name, but Beth from Rise, and then, Alice, if they met up. Because you could still have, you could have them discuss their different experiences with Deadites. You could have them relate to each other, and then you would have this, because, like, we haven't seen that much, like, other than Ash, we haven't, which I'm not saying is nothing. He's one of the best characters, obviously, not just of this franchise, but outside of that, we haven't had that much. The TV show adds a couple more, but usually when someone fights a Deadite, it's a one-off thing. It's one story that they get to fight a Deadite, or multiple, perhaps. But I think they could have something really cool there, because, like, imagine if the Deadites, because then you can make the Deadites even more effective, so that they're still a threat against someone who already knows that they're coming. And maybe that is what I mean, if you can't stop a Deadite by destroying their entire body, as it appears to be the case with Ellie, okay, that could definitely do it, and I don't know, maybe this is setting up. Maybe the next one will not only have Ellie, but also Beth. And she can say, listen, I destroyed her completely. I know, I was covered in her blood. She got wood chipped and chainsawed. That could definitely be something. And but yeah, I think, I don't know. I definitely, I hope it's not like a sign that they're worried that there wouldn't be enough people excited about. I don't know. I think it's just the fact that it doesn't feel like it flows quite so naturally. See, that's hypothetically, if you were going to do something where, this is going to be a threat for the next one, maybe make it like, like, I mean, the show had Kandar, it had the Dark Ones. Yeah, I mean, maybe the Dark Ones make an appearance, and for that to work, you just need, like, someone to mention earlier, oh, by the way, this is because of the Dark Ones, and here's a drawing in the Necronomicon of what they look like, and so they make an appearance. And I think that could be interesting. But bringing back someone where it's like, because does this mean that every Deadite could hypothetically come back like that? And is it just because you need someone to, like, interact with their ashes, read their name aloud near a mirror? Like, I don't know. Maybe if there's a good explanation for it in the next one, yeah. I don't need, like, something that could happen in the real world. It felt unearned. It felt tacked on in a way that I don't love, considering that they could have had, because, like, genuinely, if the post credits had been, like, imagine if if they're at the very end, we have Alice, like, she's exhausted, and maybe in some kind of public, maybe she's in a diner, and there's a voice asking, hey, are you okay? You look like you had a rough time. And then she, like, says something along the lines of, listen, There's literally no way in hell that you could possibly understand the rough time I've had. And then she looks up to check, okay, is the person leaving? And then we recognize Beth. And she says something along the lines of, I wouldn't count on that. Something like that, just, yeah. Anyway, I think that, but yeah, I mean, obviously, listen, Ellie's back, it's okay. Mommy's back. And she fucking murders just, yeah, it's very effective. And also just like once again, the tension and the humor combination of, okay, don't touch anything, I'll be right back. And the kid just waits for the moment that she feels confident that mommy is gone, and then she starts touching things, just, yeah, that feels like yeah, something a child would do. And I guess that pretty much covers the another thing is, okay, so this is apparently taking place not very long after the events of Rise, but Ellie has been cremated. Was there even enough left to cremate? Wasn't she just a pile of blood by the end? Did some poor fuck have to go around shoveling up chunks of meat, gather them together, do a DNA test? Like, it just raises too many questions.